everybody. Welcome to the last session of the day in the Packer. My name's Phil Smith. I work with Science Gallery Dublin. I'm the national coordinator of the Plastic Project, which will not only just be in Dublin, but we're bringing it on tour, which I'll tell you a little bit about later on. It's very exciting. I feel very important because I have a clipboard. I feel like now I have all of the power. If I had a set of keys, a high-vid vest, and actually I do have a mic here. I feel like I'm feeling like drunk on power at the moment. You're very lucky to be. We feel very lucky to have you here, and we hope that you get a lot out of this evening. What we're going to have at this panel session is a chat. We're going to have a chat, and you're going to listen in. It's like kind of fireside chat, and then we'll give you an opportunity to come in and ask questions, and also to kind of have your opinions heard. So we will have roving mics after about half an hour or so. So we'll give a chance to kind of just set the scene about the 3 oars or the 5 oars, depending on which way you want to frame them, and have a chat from that point of view. Is that okay with everybody? 3 people smiled and nodded. That's a good start. Oh, very good. I'd like to introduce in name of the panel, and they're going to introduce themselves after that. First up, we have Elaine Butler. Then we have Naomi Sheridan, Zenka Thunder, which is a fantastic second name, which I'm already scared of, and Kieran Smith, our panel, everybody. Round of applause. So, what we're going to do is get you all to introduce yourselves and get to say why these wonderful people have come here to listen to you. Elaine, can I start with you? Who are you?
So, I live in Churchtown in Dublin 14. I always thought I lived sustainably, but about 4 years ago I started to write a blog about sustainable living, and it was really, I was trying to capture all the information I was gathering, and I realised how little I knew, which was a bit startling. So I'm married and I have 2 kids, and I think that it can be a bit more challenging to live sustainably when you have a family, because you're making decisions for more than just yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I share what I've learned and my experiences, and no holds barred, and talk very honestly about the things that I try out that work and don't work, which I think is really important.
Well, that's important, I think, is to actually have that what doesn't work, as opposed to being these everything's going swimmingly kind of things. Fantastic. So that's what we're going to look for. Naomi?
Naomi Sheridan. I own a sustainable grocery store, I suppose you could call it, in Phibsborough. We opened about 14 months ago. I first kind of got introduced to zero waste through Kieran and his wife Ida, and it kind of opened a door and has pretty much kind of shaped my whole professional life now at the moment.
So it opened a shop door in particular.
Literally, yeah.
Fantastic, good. Zenka?
Thank you. My name is Zenka. I'm originally from Slovakia, and I'm one of the organisers of this festival. Thanks very much for coming, everybody. It's really good to see so many people in here, and it's something really that really fills me with joy, because when I started on my own journey a couple of years back, there weren't many people who were interested in this. And that's why it's amazing to see how things progress, and that we can build a community and we can spread the zero waste world. So it's all about, educating. So that's how I feel I can change the world.
Good. So if anybody in the audience is feeling nervous is that you have to have a base knowledge before being here, you don't. It's all about inclusive environment. Kieran, go ahead.
Hey, so like Elaine, I've always been really just interested in the environment. And my background is in science research, particularly physics and optics. And I've always been trying to kind of move my research towards more environmentally based projects. But again, I kind of realized that there wasn't, I was interested in the environment, but maybe there was more that I could be doing. And my wife and I actually, just in order to be able to buy more package-free foods, we set up a stall called Bring Your Own, and we brought it to different marketplaces around Dublin and the surrounding area. So we did that for a while, and then we teamed up with Naomi. So we kind of worked together to get the stall sort of incorporated into the shop. And I think that's gone pretty well. So the shop is up and running 14 months now. Yeah. And it's flown by, I think, and it seems to be doing well.
Stop by, we're in Phibsborough.
Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, our panel who are going to be discussing with us today. Oh, it's fine, don't worry. Just to say as well, Kieran and I actually studied together way back, we won't say how long ago, in DCU. So not only is sustainable, we've sustained our friendship over these years, although after this we'll see how it goes. Zenka, I might just come to you first to start, I think, like, just to set the tone for this actual discussion, like, about the festival itself, but also in particular, like, the oars that we've mentioned. Like,
Yes.
why are we kind of here?
We are here to learn.
Good.
I think we are here to learn because, you know, I mean, we can preach, but that's not the way. So we just kind of want to show, it's really show and tell this whole 2 days, that living sustainably, a little more eco-friendly isn't hard. It's something that should be actually the norm. It should be normal. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't be the activist. You shouldn't be the, oh, that's the green person. Oh, look, you know, kind of the scary person. It should be really in a part of our lives. And we are here with a festival, and we offer talks and workshops and info stands with other environmental causes. And yes, we do have a market as well. So we can kind of make the transition from, let's say, your normal disposable life to the greener sustainable life a little more easier, with promoting local and sustainable market producers and vendors. So it's really about learning, you know. So this panel discussion as well, it's about the 3 or 5 hours really. So we start with the reviews, and it's kind of, if you don't know where to start, ask the questions. We will be very happy to give you some advice. Or if you're already on the journey and you don't know what can you do next, that's the way as well. So, you know, we are here to kind of share our knowledge, because we might be on the way a little bit longer, but it doesn't mean that we know everything. So it's really about learning.
That's a nice kind of tone to start at the very start. One of the things that I kind of had heard before, thought working in this space, is oftentimes people are starting pressuring me to kind of not just be thinking about grassroots, but thinking about pestering, and pestering who in terms of politicians or neighbours or anything else. Is that Elaine? Is that kind of something that's part of this as well, or?
I think it depends on the personality of the person, how comfortable they are doing that. And I know when I started on my journey, I wouldn't dare do it because I didn't feel I knew enough. Mm-hmm. But as you start to learn stuff by coming to festivals like this or reading online, and you start to understand just how hard it has been made to make the more sustainable choice, it tends to get you a little bit annoyed. And, you know, before you know it, you're calling the manager over in the supermarket asking why the packaged veg is cheaper than the loose veg. Yeah. You know, you build up to it, and then when canvassers come to the door, then you feel comfortable talking to them about, you know, issues like why the local council hired a contractor to spray Roundup in your estate, because local councils don't use Roundup, and yet they hire contractors to use it, you know. Things like that, you know, but I find that you have to take the first few steps before you're comfortable doing it. But people get there in their own time, but it's by no means absolute. You just do what you can. So if you're not comfortable, that's fine.
Okay, and I suppose one of the things that you did, Naomi, and with Kieran as well, is you tried to provide that option for people as well. One of the things that, again, I'm kind of drawing what people have said, and actually what the IPCC have said, is that oftentimes people make the decisions primarily based on cost. It's like going, if you've got a young family or who's living on the breadline or anything else, and Euro World is next door, they might just go in there. And is cost kind of something that you see as a motivating factor within this as well?
Absolutely. And it's something that we get asked a lot in the shop as well. People will come in and are trying to understand the difference in costs when buying loose versus a packaged product. I guess for me, my whole lifestyle has changed. It didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process. You start kind of, you know, trying to be a bit more sustainable, you know, with buying your washing up liquid or your laundry liquid, like refilling the plastic bottles, and then you move on to something else, and then you move on to something else, and then gradually you might cut out, you know, start eating a bit more plant-based, and eating a little less meat, and then, so it's, in a long-winded way, I think the way I live now is a lot more cost-effective than the way I lived before.
Do you think you're living cheap? Like
100%, yeah. And I eat only organic food, mostly predominantly plant-based, and I have little or no zero or waste left over. And I have a daughter as well. Just throw that in there. Yeah.
And I have a daughter.
And a shop. And we actually don't have bins for the shop either.
Can I ask about that very specifically? Is it altered? You talking about yourself?
Yeah.
No, is that like with one of the things that we have with Science Gallery is that like we've tried to influence our suppliers. Obviously, who we hire, the cafe are a different company, and we've said to them we want no plastic bottles or anything else, and we want different things coming in and more sustainable, reusable. But then the things that they're delivered in are bubble wrap, there's everything else. So even the stuff that we're buying, so is there pressure that even, I suppose, shops can put in as well as individuals at the same stage?
Yeah, definitely. Because with any supplier, you are in a working relationship with them. So, I mean, it may not happen overnight, but it can you can definitely influence them in how products are delivered. Now, we do get an element of pallet wrap and some bubble wrap, not that much bubble wrap to be honest. We probably have a bag, maybe a kind of one plastic bag of plastic a week, which I just for the shop. Yeah, it's pretty good, which I put in my own bin at home, but we don't for the shop. We don't. We do fruit and veg all loose as well, but then we will juice kind of anything that might be coming to the end of a life, or we distribute it among ourselves if it's going off. And anybody who works in the shop is kind of like, oh, it's a little bit moldy. Yeah, we'll take that. So it's just a different mentality. Yeah.
And is it something that you're seeing that customers, and Kieran as well with the stand, that you saw that like different types of people coming to you then, or was it always the same people or different?
So we had like, I suppose, just through Facebook and social media, we did have like a lot of people who would know about it, who would then, I suppose, kind of come to the markets depending on where we were. But like, just being at a market, you do generate a little bit of interest. So you'll always get passers-by, depending on the market. So you kind of have some markets where people might be there more just for their lunchtime snack and coffee, and people would tend to pass you by maybe a little bit more. But you do generally just get, people coming over and saying, oh, this is a great idea. This is sometimes how it used to be sold, and I'll have to remember to bring my packaging next time, and invariably they did or didn't. But it's a good way of just getting a little bit more outreach to people that are just going out to markets at weekends. So yeah, I mean, the core group were people from social media, I think, and then beyond that it was just a chance to try to interact with people and introduce them to this way of buying food.
So that was obviously when you had your own companies, when you had like strong control over what was happening. Like, Zenka, you worked in Dundrum Town Centre, where you were an employee part with it as well. How did you, as an employee, broach those conversations then? Like, is it?
Well, I actually work for the management, and that's exactly where and when I started my journey. So I, week on week, was typing up reports about how much money people spent on, as Elaine put it very nicely, crap. Basically, clothes and electronics, and every week there were like thousands of euros spent on it. So there was like, okay, it's really the mecca of consumerism. And that's exactly when I read the article that actually started me on my journey, that someone didn't make trash or, and waste in 2 years. I was like, that's impossible. And then I was like, oh, now, how does that align? So it didn't really, so that's why I actually quit the job. But now I still have friends there, and I met with them, and they say, oh no, we are now sustainable. Do you want to come back and be a sustainability officer? I was like, don't think so. Because it's really about how we think about things, and then it goes back to the affordability. So you might not have too much money, but it really depends on how you spend it, So if you choose to spend it on, let's say, high quality food, or let's say organic, or loose packaged food, you have that because you realize that, oh, I don't really need to fly everywhere. I don't really need to buy a new phone every time they release a new phone. So it's really that, and it's that you can also, when you see both of the sides of the, let's say, like multi-corporations and big shops, where you try to do stuff and you ask them, there might be small change or not, and then it's like, well, actually, no, I'm going to vote with my money, and I'm going to go to a small shop, to a local shop, and I'm going to support what I believe in. So
the local element seems quite important as well. I suppose, Naomi, have you kind of seen this with like people? You get to know people. Like, remember, like you have the image of my grandmother going to her grocer that like always knows her, and it's like, oh, Mrs. Smith, here's your apples, and does the old gag he does all the time, Granny Smith's apples. But at the same stage, is the local element important?
Really, I think so. We opened in Phibsborough, and as I kind of had previously mentioned, we have adapted to our community, and the community has adapted to us. People who may never have considered kind of waste ever, just kind of really gone on board with refilling, washing up a liquid bottle and their laundry liquid. Like, that's just something people get. It's really easy, and they know that plastic will last for hundreds of years. So it just, that's by far and away our most popular kind of item in the shop. And you have everyone from little old ladies coming in with their little trolley to refill washing up liquids, right up to youngsters. And yeah,
And have they, has it worked the other way? Obviously, that was something you were provided. Have they requested other things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I think that's the difference for us. We are, I'm there most days, and anyone who works there kind of has a good relationship with the customers. And if they need us to stock something, like for Christmas, there was a lot of requests came in for different things, that we can, by any means, if we can oblige, we will.
Of course,
do
but
that.
it's good for business. If you have it, they'll buy it from you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you wouldn't do this in Super Value, or Tesco.
Yeah.
You just kind of really, could you just stock this one? And like, you wouldn't even think about that, because you don't really, it's very, like, I think what is very nice about Zero Waste is the community feel, and that you kind of, you're connecting to people, be it your friends, your, other people in the community, and like someone who you meet through Swap Shop or through Olia, or something that you just kind of, you're going to change, or really like when you go shopping to like a small little shop. So it's really that empowers the people, like, oh, actually, no, there's no one else now at the moment, let me ask you something. So it's kind of empowers people, and they feel that they can make a change.
So it's kind of like ancillary in terms of like the community feeling around it also is part of it as well. Elaine, you've done kind of a bit of work with your blog as well, and how do you feel about kind of the enviro awareness of the Irish public, apart from, like, obviously we know community is important to people, is the Irish public starting to get more aware in general?
It depends on where you're based. It always starts with an individual or a group of individuals, and what you'll find is, like with Naomi's shop, Noms, like that spurs a change and a conversation, and you might find that Phibsborough now is a little bit more aware than it was. I mean, I'm in South Dublin, I'm just down from Dundrum Shopping Centre, and I would say South Dublin is oblivious, absolutely. They're aware of recycling, and they do that, but the idea that they would consume less as a sustainable activity, it just goes straight over their head. It's just not something they've thought about at all. So it does depend on where you are. And like Zdenka said, you have to be careful not to preach to people, because nobody likes to be told they're doing something wrong. But it's just about putting the information out there for people to find when they're ready. And the thing about you were saying about cost, we found that we save about 2,500 per annum by living sustainably. And that's primarily because we buy 90% of the stuff we buy is second-hand. And you don't have to be wealthy to do that, So there are some, like buying organic food might be more expensive, but there's a lot of options that are less expensive. So I think it depends on the community, which is why I think the Zero Waste Festival group is so important, because, when you're on your own, it can be very intimidating to go into your local supermarket and ask, can you get something in your own container? But if you've met somebody who lives nearby and they've done it, then you feel braver doing it. It's by talking to other people who are doing it, and it makes us all a little bit more braver. And that's how, change is social, talking to people.
And normalising as well. Like, and I suppose the normalisation is knowing that someone else does it, as in that person went in ahead of me, so they're not going to think I'm a weirdo by asking for this. But also, in otherwise, other motivating factors seem to be, apart from the cost, is that, like, you get more life out of your things by wasting less of it. So this normalisation is probably one of the most key components. For me, even like when we talk to second level students that want to go to university, the most overwhelming decision factor in terms of Science Foundation Ireland did a study on it, and the barometer said that fitting in was the largest motivating factor that they had. So fitting in and being part of a community, is that what you see the biggest value out of Zero Waste is?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
The festival
because
itself?
as Elaine mentioned earlier, I also found all the zero wasters and all the eco people are really nice.
You're called zero wasters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call ourselves zero wasters.
We call ourselves that.
Yeah.
It's a shorthand.
And I know, like zero wasters, it's just a marketing term. It's a really catchy term. It doesn't mean that we don't make waste. Like, we produce waste. We we do. And they're like, okay, they are really hardcore people. Look into your wife. But
She's up the back watching. Don't worry.
it's all about that. We kind of want to be inclusive and also included. So, when you become part of the group, I met you there before. Like, you kind of become part of more groups, and they tell you other, ways how to reduce your, your consumption or your waste and stuff. So it's it feels, there's a really nice community feel to it, a really nice friendly feel to it. Like, I came in here to Ireland about 12 years ago now, and you actually will sometimes still remind me that when I came to the first Zero Waste Festival meeting, I said, "Hi, I'm Zdenka, I don't have any friends. Can I be part of this group?" And they were like, "Sure." And you see, I'm still there a couple of years later, so yeah.
And you friends now too?
We are friends.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that's a good start. Good.
Hope.
One of the things that struck me when that was quite interesting, you want to be inclusive but also be included
Yes.
as well. Is that part of the conversation to influence policy? And I asked this in particular because, as we know, in February 8th there is going to be an election. Is that included in the decisions that are made on a policy level, on another level, or is that something that you want to just kind of focus on, or is it something we need to be doing, kind of, Elaine?
Do you mean the
Political,
politicians?
yeah.
Well, the politicians, and I used to be involved in a political party, I'm no longer, but they want to, there's some of them in there who want to affect change and want to do good work. They believe they will do it by being elected. So the primary goal of any politician is to be elected. So if they think that your vote is dependent on certain priorities, that will push it up the importance level. And if people are not mentioning climate change on the door, the climate crisis, it just won't feature in policy. I mean, what it'll do is you'll get, and I've read enough policy documents in my time, a lot of it is platitudes and it's rhetoric and it's completely hollow, but it sounds very good. They do a press conference, they get coverage in the media, but it means nothing a lot of the time. And that's because they don't feel that people care enough about it. And so one thing I'll say to you, if you get canvassers coming to the door, they really do listen to what you say. You might think they don't, but all of that information gets fed back to head office, and they will. The loudest voice is what gets listened to. And if people are talking about, and of course mention homelessness and the health crisis and all of that, I'm not suggesting that you don't, but we have to mention our concerns about the climate crisis and also how difficult it is for us personally maybe to live more sustainably. And that will be fed back to head office, and then it will appear in policy more and more and more.
So because that's one of the things that I often think. For me, policy kind of often works in kind of a overarching,
Yeah.
but also like, I don't know if people are aware, like across the road there's a shop called Cloud Picker. It used to be part of the shop here, or part of the Science Gallery here, and they try to do everything as sustainably and environmentally friendly as possible. They have compostable cups that instead of people take, even though they're still single use, but they're compostable. But if you go anywhere down Pearse Street or anywhere else, there's no compost bins. And then also there's a shop trying to do a difference, and then so what kind of infrastructure do we need to either demand or we need to look for? And obviously, if there's an element of what we can compost at home and then what we can compost, I suppose, in industrials, is there things that we need to demand?
I suppose it's really, we were saying that it's really about a system, so we really need to kind of try to influence that. Like, if your customers, we can say, okay, can you maybe provide something compostable? But then not stop there, it's like, well, okay, but what I can do with it, So it's really kind of, it's hard to feel that, oh, my voice won't make any difference. But if you start demanding change from the kind of the grassroots, it will happen, and it starts happening. We can see it, but it's also about that we need to start changing our thinking and coming back. Elaine, you could talk about it more about the circular economy. So it's not really linear. It's not like we produce something, we extract everything, we produce it, then we use it, and then we throw it away, because there is really no way. to be used. So it's kind of how we think about it. So instead of having the compostable cups, you said it's single use. So yes, there are no compostable bins, but maybe it would be even better if you said to people like, okay, we will give you a discount, for example, if you bring your own reusable cup. And it's kind of, I found that it really works when you kind of connect it with financial elements. So if you basically say to people that, like, if you do that one little step, if you prepare yourself and if you're organized enough to actually bring your reusable cup, you will be rewarded. So that's also, I'm thinking about the change in thinking, really, that we need to do. And we
It's
kind of want
also-
to inspire.
It is a
That's-
mindset.
yeah.
We were in Madrid 2 years ago, and you could spot the tourists because they were the ones holding the takeaway cups. The Madridians sit in cafes and have a coffee. So, I mean, I don't understand our obsession with disposability and convenience and speed. Are we really that busy? That we have to have. I was a couple
We're
of
all
kids.
very important people.
Well,
I'm
of course,
sure.
we're all very important
Yeah,
people.
especially the ones with a clipboard.
So, I mean, there is, like, we're saying about facilitating people and having the infrastructure to go. Like, to be fair, those compostable cups were brought out and they were so that businesses don't have to change, because the government we currently have in are very pro-business, which is fine, but they
Big
won't do
business.
anything that affects the profit of the business. And sometimes you have to in order to pave the way. But if they're not providing the infrastructure to manage something like compostable cups, we have a choice to sit in and have a coffee or bring a reusable cup, and I'm probably preaching to the converted here because we're the type of people who do it, but you know what I mean, it's not completely out of our hands, so sometimes it's opting out of the system completely and just not taking that compostable cup.
Okay, that kind of brings me on to something that happened. It was another conversation here a while back with the FSAI, which is the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, who were talking about plastic in particular. And for those of you who haven't gone through the whole tour with Science Gallery and Plastic, the first stage of the exhibition is really just kind of setting the scene about what plastic is. It's 1,500 different types of materials. And then the next two stages are a dystopian future and a utopian future. Like what's crap about what could potentially happen down the line if we keep going the way we are, and what's wonderful about the material and what we can use itself. So it's not telling you how to think, it's kind of presenting the material and letting you make up your materials and letting your own mind up. FSAI, though, the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, were very kind of keen to stress with us, though, at one particular event, that it is necessary for food safety for plastic to be involved in packaging. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Did they mean
I
that...
don't know what they mean, but however.
Okay. Because I've looked at the research around. One argument I hear frequently is that food packaging prevents food waste.
Yes.
And what it occurs to me, when I used to buy food that was packaged, I found it went off really quickly as soon as I opened the package. Like the apples were like
It's like it's designed
sawdust.
to do
Yeah,
it
because
now,
it has actually protective atmosphere.
Exactly.
It's not just, like it's designed to keep it fresh, but as soon as you open it, it just
Yeah.
goes.
And now, anecdotally, it felt to me that it went off a lot quicker. So if I bought lettuce in a bag, you'd have to get it eaten in 3 days. Whereas if I bought a head of lettuce that was package free, I'd get 5 days out of it. And I went looking for the research to see, does food packaging extend the life of food after it's opened? And there's no research done in that I could find, and I've gone looked actively. So to me, what I'm wondering is, food packaging is preventing food waste at the retailer end, and I feel it's been pushed all on the consumer. And therefore, and we're then being told we're wasting food, and we should feel guilty, and we should stop wasting food. And I feel like, no, the system is set up so that supermarkets can import fruit and vegetables from halfway across the world because they can get it cheaper from that supplier. And in order to get it into Ireland and fresh enough on the shelves for us to buy it, they have to heavily package it. So in order to maintain their profits, they have to package it. And also it's quicker to scan through the tills if it's packaged than if it's loose. And then we're suffering, and then we're being told we're being bad consumers because we're generating all this food waste. I don't buy it at all that food packaging is reducing food waste. If somebody show me the data that says that it is. Yeah, and I also think that there's a huge concern over the safety of having food in your own container, meat particularly. And I think a lot of that is linked to insurance, because companies are being told, like if you're a small butcher's and your insurance company is saying to you, we're going to have to increase your premium if you're accepting customers' own containers because there's more risk, then they're going to not accept it. So I think insurance is driving a lot of the concern in small businesses, you know, and you need the evidence behind it.
Kieran, you want to come in?
I was just going to say, like, the other problem with packaging for a lot of vegetables and fruit is that they often will package things in quantities that you don't need. So that's probably why you're getting a lot more food waste at home. So you have to buy 3 courgettes instead of 1. And, you know, that's just the option you have available to you. So that's tends to be why people would throw more out, I guess.
What about
So,
the
like,
fact that they're
and
like
then
selling
the other-
bananas that already have a biodegradable packaging?
Yeah, but
already
the
anyway?
other problem then is, like, so say for example, if you want to get one of those, you want to get a pepper, it costs more to get 1 pepper in a supermarket than it does to buy the bag of 3 peppers. So then of course people are going to buy that, use the 1 pepper, and then say, oh, I'll use these later, forget about them. They get thrown out. So, you know, it's not really kind of helping the food waste issue, I guess.
No.
So we've kind of set a few different bits and pieces. We kind of jumped around a little bit. What I want to do now is actually give the audience an opportunity to either ask anything or postulate some ideas or see where we go with it. Is there anybody in particular has anything that they'd like to say or jump in with? So guy in the blue jumper over there. While the microphone's on its way up there, the rest of you think of something else. Please. Go ahead.
Thanks. Just a question on Elaine's one about the food waste. So I was chatting to a friend of mine who works for Lidl. He's like a director. He's a big fish there. I was asking about packaging and waste and stuff, and he made the point that in Ireland we're not seasonal. So like if you ever want the bananas and strawberries, etc. So if you want to get your bananas, etc., you won't buy bananas or apples or peppers that are covered in dirt from being travelled on a train or on a plane and etc. So there's an issue I think with that. What would your views be on that?
I don't disagree. I think retailers are in a really sticky place because there are some, I mean, I see people going into like Lidl and getting package-free bananas and then putting them in a plastic bag, you know, so you're going to have retailers who, or customers who want to buy it that way. And I do think that our food system, often the waste is a symptom of a problem rather than the problem itself. And our foods, we've become so disconnected from the people who provide our food. And the great thing about going local, I was chatting to a lady at a farmer's market on Friday, and for anyone who thinks farmer's markets are expensive, like I got 6 free to roam, which is what we know by free range, you know, proper free range. 6 eggs for £2. Like, it's better, the cheaper than I get in Super Value. And she was just talking about the lady who has the hens and was able to tell me about, and she was able to say, I have no carrots this week because the weather destroyed the crop of the guy she gets it from. I'm chatting to her. I'm knowing about where I'm getting my food from. That bit is missing. So retailers who want to do right do have to tread carefully. And I would think that, we were talking about policy earlier, that we need to level the playing field. So if you want your tomatoes out of season, that's totally fine. You're going to pay for them. That's where we need to level the playing field, you know?
And then there's one other one. With the election coming up, would you have any recommendations of parties that are...
Oh, it's getting serious now!
Yeah.
Well,
That's what we came here for.
As a punter, it's very hard for me to know because
I know. It is very hard
mixed
to know.
messages, etc.
I used to be a member of the Green Party and I was in charge of writing their policy documents for 4 years, and I've been out of it about 2-3 years now. So when I was there, they had fabulous policy.
Oh my
I
God,
do say so.
Sounds like Donald Trump. Oh my God, the policy.
There's some very good people in the Green Party, and I vote for people I know in there, but I don't vote Green Party now because of my experience in the party, but that's just a personal thing. And our policy is only half the picture because I've seen really good policy ignored by politicians for political gain. So now what I do is I vote for the individual that I think has got integrity. And I find them because I would be involved in a few community groups locally. And the politician that when nobody's going to find out about it gets the information you need to help you do a grant application or comes along. You see, my husband's involved in cleanups, you know, of rivers, he used to. And you see politicians rocking up with their advertising board. Yep. And then clean wellies, do nothing, chatting to everyone. And then as soon as it was over, went with their advertising board. Never touched a piece of waste that was pulled out of the river. And you only find out those people by talking to people in community groups or being involved in community groups. I personally believe, and it's just an opinion, that having a government full of good people with integrity is better than voting for a group of people who will do whatever to stay in power, regardless of how good their policies are. So I don't know if that helps.
So it seems it kind of comes down to individuals, and also one of the things that we discuss is trust. And
Yes.
whether, with Naomi, you were talking about this, obviously, it's like local people know you because you're local. The stall with you, Kieran, was local people know you because local. Is that, I suppose, even with the Zero Waste Festival, people get to know you.
Yeah.
So it seems like trust is transit on a personal level seems incredibly important across all of these.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Great.
It's
Just leave it at that.
fundamental to
No
you know,
discussion there.
yeah, human
Cool.
relationships.
Go another down the front here. Please don't fall. Thank you.
Thanks for the enlightening things that you were saying, and also bringing a lot of questions to my mind. I live in the city centre, and we were trying in our community to figure out how to create a communal composting, because we don't have gardens. We have micro yards in the back that are 40 square centimetres, and we don't have anywhere to put the compost. So we have tried to engage with our local councillors through tidy towns that we set up and stuff. Does any of you have any advice as to how to go about it? It looks to me that the Dublin City Council does have several people who are interested in pushing sustainability, but it doesn't seem to be a prevailing thought. So I'd be interested in your experiences and
What
advice.
was the feedback you got from the councillors when you approached them?
That there's nowhere to put a composting bin, like it's a street. Is there anybody's garden that we could put it
Okay.
in and go, like, none of us have a garden?
If you want to achieve anything in life, do the thinking. So people are too busy to do the thinking about everyone else's problem. So if you want a playground, a compost bin, anything, you locate the site, you write the arguments, you do all of the thinking for the person that you want to advocate for you. And you line up a petition of people who are in favour, and you go, if it's a political thing, and you go and you say, these people want it, because you know what those people are? Their votes. Okay? And that will get you what you need, or they'll tell you who you need to talk to. So you have to do all the thinking. You need to identify the site, you need to do the costings, you need to do all of that.
But you're not alone.
Yeah.
Phibsborough isn't the very same. There's because all of our single use is compostable. People are saying, well, I don't have access to a compost bin. The bin companies don't provide one, or I'm in an apartment block and I don't have access. So it's a bigger problem than just kind of where you are. It seems to be a Dublin-wide problem at the moment.
Because what we were wondering is, could a container be put, a composting container be put on the street, on a traffic island, where it could be done?
Of course it could. They
But
do
like,
it in other countries, but
there
whether
seems
the
to be a
will
lot
is
of
there.
resistance to that.
There are policies, just from having a father who was deputy city engineer for a while. There are certain things that bind them in terms of, like, there's a blanket policy on certain things. One of the things that he also used to say was that we get a lot of requests for stuff. We ignore all of them for a
Yes,
while.
they do.
And eventually it's the ones that people are persistent about are the ones that they actually must matter, as opposed, because they get a lot of frivolous type requests a lot of the time. One of the other practical things that I found, in most other things as well, whether it's sometimes even looking to get on a TV show or whether it's anything else, is timing. Like right before an election or a bit of time, sometimes is a good time to ask these questions, or at the end of a budgetary year, because most Dublin City Council will get either money back, or they're like, we need to spend this now or else we'll lose the budget. So some of these things are about timing as well. So there are practical issues, but for me, one of the things that I've often seen is continuance and persistence within that tends to work, like anything else.
That's very true, because the automatic response of all councils is no. And they give you no on average 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's the person who comes back the 4th time that they start talking to.
They have numbers on it, which is like they
Yeah.
have the statistics kind of go, most queries will drop off at this point, so that's how many times we'll say no to.
Yeah.
Keep badgering.
It's all science at the end of the day. We're both enabling things and restricting things at the same time. Are there people? Go ahead, Jim. Where's it?
Hi Naomi, I just wanted to say how much I admire you with the shop and that. I used to live up in Phibsborough must be nearly 15 years ago now. Lived on the other side of Dublin, and I wish they had something like that on that side, typical. But you know the way you're all talking about the community element of the environment and recycling and reusing, it's almost like you have to change your lifestyle. It's a change of lifestyle. Because when I think about my parents when they were growing up, and the way they, especially going to shops where they'd have sweet suede, nothing in plastics, but it's almost like we have to go back in time into them kind of beliefs and values and ways as well. So I don't know if anybody else agrees.
No, and it's not easy because it's almost going against the grain. It's going against all the big marketing that multinationals, and it's the world we live in. So it is kind of trying to almost silence that out and go, actually, do I need packaging? It says it's high in fiber. Well, brown rice is high in fiber. You don't need a cereal made by somebody, a marketer to tell you that this is what you need to be eating.
And it doesn't have to have a name on it either.
No.
As long as it's edible. It's kind of like I said, it's a change of lifestyle, and I find that with my work, I kind of bring it with the kids as well, like recycling, doing art with them, and just getting them involved as well. The amount of plastics that are used, because like the talks that were earlier on about the waste of water, you can imagine the amount of waste of water in an art room as well. I know I'm going away from food, but it's
But it is really kind of coming back to it used to be, because my parents or my grandparents, they lived completely fine without plastic. They were buying in bulk, they were buying in kind of, local shops. But also I happened to be in Dublin Food Co-op when they were they were still in Newmarket Square, and they were thinking about becoming more zero waste. They were thinking about, getting the gravity bins and stuff. And there was a lady who was with the co-op since the very beginning. And she said, that's what we used to do. We used to have sacks for everything. So it really went the whole cycle. So they used to sell it in sacks and kind of in bulk, then got everything packaged, and now they're back to the loose produce. So it really is the kind of coming back what it used to be, because it worked. It was just like really the marketing in the modern society that made us want everything conveniently packaged.
Convenient and speed and everything. So.
It is a mindset as well that transcends more than food as well. Also, I mean, like you see obviously upstairs, it isn't like a food stalls everywhere. Well, it is kind of like it's waste in every aspect of life. You were saying about secondhand clothes, and even in terms of your time and your efficiency as well. It's actually a mindset that often waste is like what I talked earlier on. Is sometimes it's a gateway drug to other climate change issues as well at the same time. It is a mindset that you find that people are shifting, not only just from a mind but also from a moralistic point of view.
I think people are thinking about things a little bit more if they have time. I think Greta Thunberg and David Attenborough and all of that have made us, and the fast fashion.
Yes.
Like really we're buying more clothes and we're wearing them for less time. And I think the swap shop is a perfect opportunity. That's real zero waste. It's like we're keeping things worn for longer. So package free is part of zero waste, but it's also, I did a talk in a secondary school a while ago, and I had jumpers older than the people who were listening to me, and that's an alien concept for a lot of people. And if you say something like that, it sticks in somebody's head.
Yeah.
So if they go to put, and I'm against donating to charity shops unless something is in perfect condition. Do not offload your stuff to charity shops, because there's this idea that it's okay once I donate it. Yeah. No, it's not. If you can't reuse it or wear it, you find someone who can, and you don't let it out of your hands until you find that person, because otherwise it's just ending up in someone else's landfill.
So if I have underwear older than those, I shouldn't be. Okay,
TMI.
Fair enough. It's not. Don't worry, I don't. Just to be clear, it was a joke.
That was actually my question. You have something that's frayed. So this is fine. This is secondhand. This is secondhand. Almost everything I'm wearing except for the scarf is secondhand. And it's frayed, and it's now past its sell-by date as far as clothing goes, and you're not going to find someone. I don't know anyone who's doing quilting with really old stuff, but that's what they did. And then they gave it to the rag man, and the rag man made paper out of it. Where is the rag man today so I can bring my stuff to him?
So where do you donate end-of-life textiles? Is that the question? Okay, so I did a blog post on this, because you see the clothes bins that are happening all over the place. So if something needs to be repaired, I would repair it and I would rehome it to somebody. I think swap shops are ideal, or a charity shop. But if it's at the end of its life, then I donate, and I've less to do now, but when I start on this journey, you do end up with clothes at the end of their life, because you don't buy as good quality. And I didn't years ago, and I ended up with clothes like that I couldn't rehome to somebody. So there are some charity shops that take clothing for rags. So I checked beforehand, I brought my bag in, clearly labelled rags, and they sell it by weight to the rag companies. No, go in to your local, we're all about local, go into your local charity shop and ask them, and then you tell your friends about it so that they know how to do it. It's all about local. And I'm not in favour, with H&M doing it, because I prefer the charity shop to benefit from the money they get from the ragman rather than to H&M. But if H&M is your local and that's all you can do, then like fine. But that's the best way to dispose of end-of-life textiles, or actually use it as a rag in your own house. That's actually better.
Yeah, for cleaning.
Sorry?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do take it, and they give you a voucher for €5 to spend on their clothes, which help their profits. So
There is also options as well. So yeah, exactly. There is also options for when you have, like, say, sheets or duvets as well for like dogs' homes as well, or for,
That's
like
true.
to bring them to as well. So actually, we've just at home just finished out. So now, like, I take comfort in knowing that there's a dog somewhere.
actually, I have a page on my blog. So I forgot to mention, my blog is Living Lightly in Ireland, and if you go onto it, there's a page at the top. It says what to donate or recycle where, and I have a list of the sort of odd things you might not know where to do to I hate the word dispose of. And there's a list of places there if you want, and things like you mentioned, the dogs' homes or things like that.
Cool. We've got time for another question up here.
I'm just wondering, do you have any recommendations for non-recyclable plastics, so the plastic films and bags and stuff like that you end up with? So I'd be pretty good with my recyclables and my compost. I'm lucky enough to have a compost bin, but I'm stuck on this plastic films and things like that, and what to do. Like, is the fire the option, or?
I think the first part would be, if you go back to over 5 hours, try to refuse it. If you you can really try to eliminate it from whatever, if you buy it or get it in your house. And it is a problem. There you can also hear about these eco bricks, which is really, it's something like that we do, but no, it's not really. It's basically, if you don't know eco bricks, it's like stuffing a 2-litre bottle with all the plastic really tightly, and then basically make it like a brick to do something with it. But it's more, again, for educational purposes. So if you do give it to someone, some charity that actually does something with them, let's say they make a stool out of it, it doesn't get shipped to wherever, third world, and it's not being, used as a brick. It's really just to kind of, again, to give it away. I really think that we should really stop using it, as in refuse. It depends, I don't know, what is it that you get it in from? Is it food packaging or?
Generally, it's meat.
Meat.
My meat packaging.
Try to go to, we still do eat meat, and I go to my local Super Value actually, which is not a local butcher because I don't have a local butcher. I go to Super Value and I buy it in my own containers.
And do they do that? Because my local Super Value has stopped doing it.
They do, and I'm pretty sure I was the first one who did that. They all know me by name by now, but that's
There's
okay.
a poster on the wall.
Yeah, aware. But I get compliments from the cashiers. Oh, this is such a great idea. I was like, I know, thank you.
Yoink, and get it.
Modesty.
From other people at the counter. Oh, they kind of look at you, kind of like, oh, what is she doing? But then, the idea is there. And they don't have a problem with that. Now, I know that you had a problem with that. And I was like, oh my God, did they just, did they cop on or whatever? But no, they continue.
Was it a former Super Queen?
Possibly.
See, there's two management teams in Musgraves. One is the former Super Queens and one is the independent, and they've different rules for both. Yeah. I'll tell you what I do for myself, plastic packaging. So I try and avoid it as much as possible. If it's a food packaging that I'm getting every week, I try and buy, because I buy crackers for my kids' lunch, and Lidl have bins that you can put some of your waste in. So I will only buy crackers in Lidl, because if I can't refuse it, I make it the retailer's problem. And so, but if I buy something like, let's say a packet of underwear or vests in Marks and Spencer's and they have it in the plastic packaging, I bring that, because I can do that because I don't buy that often. I'll bring it back to the customer service desk and I'll say, I can't recycle this, so I'm returning it to you. And before they have a chance to say anything,
her as well.
I've gone, yeah. Do whatever this woman says. So
that's not what's on the poster.
Probably not. So that's what I do. But you can't let perfectionism be the enemy of the good. We can only do what we can do within the current system. So you do what you can do, and then you just, go on with your life. So if you're generating some soft plastic packaging and you can't avoid it, you're still doing a hell of a job.
So it's try, I suppose, is the message. Like, and not only just try and fail, but try and see what happens, and be the one. Different ones to accept.
It's not being recycled.
Yeah, it's not. They accept it, but it's not.
It's very valuable for burning, and the government have rebranded incineration as recovery.
Yeah,
so it's very valuable for that. But look, if you're bringing it there, you are doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. Thinking about it. Good. Last question, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. Thank you. It's really good to talk. So it's just the green bin I'm a little bit confused about. And I bring a lot of my stuff down to the recycling centre near Ringsend. And because it's the hard plastics that you can't avoid, I'm just wondering, it's better to bring those to the recycling centre than you can't put those in the green bin, can you?
Do you mean food packaging?
No, I mean like, say you have to buy hard plastic. What is that called?
You mean like an object, an item?
Like no, like say for example, I've started using like say I buy cream, say for the baby, but it's in like a hard plastic.
Oh yeah.
I've started now putting muesli in there or things like that. So I'm kind of thinking outside the box.
Reusing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can't.
You can put that in the green bin, and actually a great resource. I'm not a fan of recycling because even though it's better than incineration or landfill, it's still an environmentally damaging process. So we need to limit it as much as we can, and we do that by refusing and reducing. But mywaste.ie is a fabulous resource, and they have it by item, and you can email them and message them, and they are brilliant at coming back. So you can ask them there, you know. But you're right, some hard plastics, it is better to bring to the recycling centre if you can. But mywaste.ie is a good resource.
But also it's worth to check with your waste collector because that's
true.
Yeah, it's, you know, it might be different because some company might accept it and some doesn't.
That's true.
So
yeah, some companies don't accept compostable plastic in the brown bin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are other organisations like Voice Ireland as well. You'll find them online that they'll be able to answer stuff online. Often if you actually message them on social media, they'll come back through on that. Mindy O'Brien, who's been at a few of these before. Before we come to the panel for their final kind of take home, which is, and I'll give you a second to think of this, don't worry, is what would you like kind of people either as a starting point or something that they could do. I just want to briefly kind of mention what's happening with the exhibition outside from a science gallery point of view. So plastic that's touring outside, as I mentioned earlier on, isn't to say that the material is, or list of materials, because plastic is about 1,500 different types of common use materials, isn't good or bad. Like there's wonderful things that can do, like if you see up right behind us there's a company called Axial 3D who make rapid prototypes of hearts and other organs of the body, and then surgeons get to practice on them before actually operating on pediatric patients. And in the last 3 months, there's been 3 patients that they've either chosen to operate on or not operate on based on these models, and it's saved their lives. So there's wonderful things that happen with plastic that wouldn't be necessarily useful, but it's our relationship with it that's a bit different. And what we're trying to do with the exhibition is have those conversations like the ones that we've had here, but also kind of act as make everything that we have within our lives not single use. So the project itself, plastic, is then touring around the country. We're going to Wexford, we're going to Drogheda, Limerick, Galway and Donegal, in old churches. We're actually going to be in the Wexford County Hall. We're in King John's Castle. So we're also, so if there's anybody that you know in those areas that might be interested in talks like this or finding out a little bit more about what Science Gallery does or plastic in general, please spread the word and tag us and other things, because we want, to do this, but also like you were talking about it earlier on with the shop, don't want you to just come out and tell people. We want to get their influence in. And I think that's one of the key points that I've picked out. Apart from the trust element, because you get to know people through conversations.
Absolutely.
And that's what we tried to do today in a little bit of a talking at you, but getting involved. Please, tomorrow, the Zero Waste Festival is here again. Come have chats with people. They're lovely people all over the place. We're lovely people, and we're trying to do it all together. You've all been really nice. Your last thoughts, Kieran. I'll start with you.
I think it's just to kind of think about everything that you're buying and just look at your local area. Think about what foods are locally produced or what products are locally produced. Kind of see what stores are available around you, and maybe just think about, what am I buying? Can I get it somewhere else? Is it more environmentally friendly to get it somewhere else? And just kind of start with that, and you'll just start thinking about what you're consuming, I guess. And
Think before you act. Yeah. Zenka?
I'd say try and keep trying, because that's already more than a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Naomi?
I would say don't get overwhelmed, and I would challenge you all to try and make one change a week, maybe just one.
Yeah.
See how you go.
It's funny. It's like, you know, we're all sort of following on from one another, because I totally agree with that. And my point was, the thing that stops us from actually implementing this is the time it takes to think. We're so used in life to just working based on, you know, automation and habits. And when you're changing your lifestyle or your way of thinking, you need to invest the time in thinking. And that's the thing that people don't tend to do. You're on Facebook, you're looking at videos on the, you know, when you're commuting and stuff like that. And so I agree, one thing a week, because it'd be overwhelming, but you have to invest the time in. Let's say you want to buy your coffee in a reusable cup this week. Think about what stops me doing that. Put the reusable cup in your bag on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Make a point of washing it, or have 2 or 3, have one in the office and whatever, and you know you can use a regular cup. Think about what's stopping me implementing this. Plan to overcome that, and that's your thing that week. And schedule that slot of time. Sunday morning, Sunday evening, whenever, on the bus. I'm not watching Facebook, I'm not going on Facebook. I'm going to think about what I'm implementing this week and how I'm going to do it. And then you'll be much more successful. And when you do it, you'll feel fabulous, and then you'll do the next thing.
Oh my God, feeling fabulous at the end of the day. That's fantastic. We've been fantastically on time. We started on time and we're finishing on time. What are the odds? Lastly, I'd just like to thank Andy, who's been looking after us in terms of AV, our panel members, and for you for being here. I've been Phil Smith. Thank you very much for joining us. Well done.
Thank you. Well done.